In this week's edition of Climate Friday, we're going to talk about extreme heat and the impacts climate change may be having on record heat. And in particular, we're going to focus on states out west. The west coast of the United States, up into the Pacific Northwest, has felt the brunt of this extreme heat this week. Let's talk about the heat records. In fact, in the last 7 days, just 1 week's time, we have shattered over 1,000 high temperature records. That is across the entirety of the United States, from west coast to east coast. But it just goes to show how impactful and how widespread this heat has been. Now, comparatively, the low temperature records, or record cold, has been very sparse. Less than 30 counts of record low temperatures set within the last week. In fact, just 25. Now, normally you would expect that if the world was not warming, we'd see a pretty even number between the high and the low temperature records, but we've had 1,000 to 25, a sharp contrast between the extreme heat that we've seen and not quite as common of cold. Let's talk about a few of these extreme records. These temperatures barely even seem real. San Jose saw a high temperature record of 109 degrees, and Sacramento, an all-time September record, 116. That's not just the record for the day, that is the entire month long, 116 degrees, a temperature that barely even seems real at first glance. Also, a couple other areas, it's not just California being impacted. Salt Lake City is a popular tourist destination, and it is feeling the wrath of this extreme heat. 107 degrees, that was an extreme record set on Tuesday. And of course, Death Valley is an area that is notorious for the extreme heat, but 125. Nonetheless, that is extraordinary. And they have had temperatures in the 120s just about every single day this month, even though 125 ties an all-time record for September. Those 120-degree temperatures have impacted parts of California regularly over the last month. Just to recap some of these extreme temperatures: Death Valley 125, Sacramento 116, and also other parts of California over towards Utah experiencing temperatures well over 100 degrees. Now, we recorded this video on Thursday evening, and there are still a number of heat warnings and watches in effect. Thankfully, the worst of the heat is now in the past, but we are still seeing some heat-related weather alerts from the southern parts of Nevada all the way through California. In fact, much of our westernmost state, California, is under the impact of some sort of heat watch or warning. Excessive heat warnings are shaded in that pink color, and they stretch from Southern California in the LA to San Diego area all the way up to the Bay Area, near parts of San Francisco that are also under heat alerts. Now, climate change is one factor that is causing this extreme heat, but of course, fluctuations in the weather and the jet stream do play a role as well. We have seen a weather pattern that's brought what we call a ridge in the jet stream, and it has delivered excessive heat to much of the western United States. Now, there's a yin and yang in the weather, in the sense that with that extreme heat out west, we get a dip in the jet stream that brings some more seasonable, pleasant September temperatures looking out towards the Great Lakes region and the East Coast. This is what we call a ring of fire weather pattern, or a heat dome, that has brought excessive heat to much of the country's midsection, all the way out towards the West Coast, stretching from Texas up to Missouri, on off into California, seeing the extreme heat. Now, thankfully, we are going to get some relief out west from this heat, and a lot of that has to do with moisture from K, which is spinning away in parts of the eastern Pacific. That is going to bring moisture, even though the tropical system itself is going to stay out to sea. It'll bring a little bit of rainfall, and at the very least, some relief from the heat, some cloud cover, and possibly some rain and thunderstorms, and that'll include parts of Nevada and California. That'll see just a little bit of reprieve from the heat. Looking at the long-range weather outlook, well, it is going to turn cooler out west, but we are going to get the reciprocity from Mother Nature. That means warmer conditions across much of the Great Lakes, the Midwest, and the East Coast. That orange color across a good portion of the lower 48 states shows you temperatures expected to be above average through the middle of September. Now, let's take a glance out to the West Coast. Finally getting some relief. That blue color shows you cooler than normal temperatures expected across Nevada, California, and even into the Pacific Northwest up towards Oregon and Washington. Those are states that have also felt the extreme heat, and thankfully, relief is on the way for folks out west. Temperatures are still going to be warm, but those 100-degree temperatures and even 110, those are going to be a thing of the past with some cooler days ahead. For more information on climate change and how it may impact you, subscribe at WTOL.com/email, and we break down a new topic every Friday. Hope to see you next week for the latest.